Here's today's First Word Daily Devotion.
Well, this morning is February the 4th, and we turn our attention to the climax of the Exodus event. Here we have the instance where the death angel comes. It's the final plague. It's the plague that breaks Pharaoh's back. It's, or we should say, the one that softens the heart of Pharaoh. And we need to pay attention a little bit to a theme that's connected here, especially as it relates to our reading in Exodus chapter 12, connecting that a little bit with Matthew chapter 19, just as the editors of the ESV Everyday Bible are encouraging us as we go through our readings. We find in Matthew chapter 19 that Moses commanded something because of the hardness of heart. And so as we're reading this passage together, this Old Testament, New Testament, Psalm, and Proverb, we're reminded of the reality of the hardness of heart and the realization that God is able to soften the heart. So let's turn our attention to the details in Exodus chapter 12. We'll focus on that today, and the reason being is because the Old Testament is really the foundation of our faith. We need to keep that in mind whenever we're reading the Old Testament. We're always reading the Old Testament with the cross, or we should say through the cross, because we're Christian. And so let's read it. Let's see Exodus chapter 12. It says, "The Lord said to Moses and Aaron in the land of Egypt." Now that's key. They are in the land of Egypt. They are in the house of bondage. What does he say? He says, "This month shall be for you the beginning of months. It shall be the first month of the year for you." And now that's important because the calendar is going to start with salvation. The Lord is going to order the minds and the patterns of His people with salvation. Look at what happens here. It says in verse 14, "This day shall be for you a memorial day. You shall keep it as a feast to the Lord throughout your generations, as a statute forever. You shall keep it as a feast. 7 days you shall eat unleavened bread. On the first day you shall remove the leaven out of your house. For if anyone eats what is leavened from the first day until the seventh day, that person shall be cut off from Israel." And then we have this language again, verse 16, "On the first day you shall hold a holy assembly, and on the seventh day a holy assembly." So in other words, God is patterning His people to realize that their week revolves around salvation. It's sort of the same thing that we do, isn't it? Although we don't have a sacrifice, we don't believe, like some groups believe, that every time we get together it's a re-sacrifice of Jesus. No, we don't believe that. But we do come together and we celebrate the fact that Christ has risen from the dead. And so our week is ordered around salvation. You say, where did we get that idea? Well, it comes straight from the Lord's salvation event in the book of Exodus. But notice here, verse 25, the promise is always before us. And when you come to the land that the Lord will give you, as He promised, you shall keep this service. And pay attention here in verse 35. "The people of Israel had also done as Moses told them, for they had asked the Egyptians for silver and gold, jewelry and clothing, and the Lord had given the people favor in the sight of the Egyptians, so that they let them have what they asked." Now notice this battle imagery here. "Thus the people plundered the Egyptians." And then we have here this other emphasis on the Lord providing. Look at what it says in verse 39. "They were thrust out of Egypt and could not wait, nor had they prepared any provisions for themselves." And so we're going to see this unfold as we follow the children of Israel through the wilderness. Who is going to be the one to provide all that they need? And then, of course, we have this verse 51. It says, "On that very day the Lord brought the people out of Israel out of the land of their host." And let's just close our reading by reminding ourselves, with all of that imagery of the Lord's salvation in Exodus chapter 12, with the realization that the Lord has the power to soften a hard heart, let's remember what Proverbs says. Blessings are on the head of the righteous, but the mouth of the wicked conceals violence. The memory of the righteous is a blessing, but the name of the wicked will rot.